Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Dad Bod Pod, a place for men to learn, grow, and live the healthiest life possible. I'm your host, Jason Priest, and I've got an exciting interview for you guys today. Zach and Anthony will be back with me next week for our fireside chat, but I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of our interview today. With me today, I have Dr. Francisco Contreras. And you guys are going to get a lot of hard-hitting information in terms of what his mission is and what he's doing right now to help people. But before we go there, I just want to let you guys know, if you're a first-time listener, highly encourage you to go back and check out some of the prior episodes. We're over 120 episodes now, tons of information, inspiration, motivation, and factual science-based evidence to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. And if you're a longtime listener, thank you guys so much for being here. If you get value out of today's episode, the only thing that we ask is you take 10 seconds out of your day, drop us a quick review. That's what helps the show out a lot, helps grow the show, gets the show into the ears of more men who could potentially change their life by the information that we're putting out on a week-to-week basis. So without further ado, today I have an awesome interview for you guys, like I said. So I have Dr. Francisco Contreras with me today. He's a cancer specialist renowned for integrating alternative therapies with conventional cancer treatment. For the last 38 years, he has treated tens of thousands of patients who have come from more than 60 countries seeking alternative cancer treatment at his Oasis of Hope Hospital in Mexico. He has spoken around the world and appeared on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox and Friends. He is the author of 12 books, including his new release, The Art and Science of Undermining Cancer. So without further ado, Dr. Contreras, thank you so much for taking some time for our audience today, and welcome to the show.
Jason, it's a pleasure and an honor.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited for this. This is a topic that I don't think gets discussed often enough, especially in our community with what we do. And we've actually had some, like I told you before the show, I've had some dialogue going with a few of our current members in regards to their own cancer and cancer treatment and the things that they're dealing with. So before we dive into your specialty and unpack some of that, I'm going to ask you the only scripted question that we ever ask on this show. And that's really just to get your take on, I went over the dad bod with you prior to, but you guys that are listening right now, Dr. Contreras is from Mexico, and they're not up on our slang terms. So dad bod wasn't really something that he was familiar with, but now he's very familiar with it. So with all that being said, Dr. Contreras, what is your take on where the U.S. is as a whole in terms of health? Obviously, you and I touched base prior to the show, and pre-pandemic, the glaring weakness in this country is our health, right? The obesity epidemic is a very, very major issue that our country's dealing with. So I want to get your thoughts on that, kind of where, what your projection is for us as a country, and just get your opinion.
Well, one of the reasons why I started writing books was more to, the best way to beat cancer is not to have it, correct?
Right.
And
no
so
doubt. Really any disease, right?
Correct, and it is not that difficult to avoid it. There are a number of things that we can do, and one of them is to avoid obesity. Obesity puts you at a tremendously high risk of developing cancer, on top of diabetes,
Sure.
and heart disease, and many other problems. And the interesting thing that I found in all of the research that I did is that it takes definitely courage and discipline, but it's not difficult to do. For you to maintain a body weight below 25% of body mass index, which is that's the technical term for overweight.
Sure.
So you are in your perfect weight when you are under 25. 20 would be ideal. I mean, athletes like you, as I see you, you probably are around 13, 15.
Sure.
And so that is very healthy, but 20 is enough. Even up to 24 is good. And to keep that, you need to do a diet that, it's not a terrible diet, because if I talk about the ideal diet and then you see it and you say, well, I'd rather die than eat this,
Yeah,
then that's not the diet for you. But really, if you stay with a diet that it's closer to the way God put food on this earth, and is
yes,
the less manipulated it is, the better.
Yep.
And the second thing is to do an exercise program of 4 hours a week. The strenuous exercise is the ideal, but walking is enough. So
Sure.
if you walk 4 hours a week and eat a good diet, you're going to reduce your risk of developing obesity and heart disease and cancer by about 50%. So if you do a better diet and do a little bit more strenuous exercise, let's say 4 hours of exercise where you actually sweat for the most of the hour, you're going to reduce the risk of developing cancer by almost 75% just by doing that. And so how do you determine how should you eat? Well, it's all by design. All you have to do is look at your mouth and count your teeth. So we have normally 32 teeth, or 34 if you still have the judgment back teeth. And of those, 4 are canine, right? So we humans, we're designed to eat animal food or meats and vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
But out of the 32 teeth, only 4 are canine. What does that tell you? That only 10 or 11% of your food should come from the animal kingdom, and the rest should come from the vegetable kingdom. And so your plate should look with a little piece of meat and a lot of vegetables. And I think that can be a very enjoyable diet for life. Now that once in a while, as I see there in your logo,
Yeah.
you go for a burger and you go with friends or Christmas, well, forget about it, because the other big element for you being healthy and reducing the risk of developing disease is to be happy.
Sure.
And one of the things that is the biggest problem in very developed countries like Europe and the States is, this thrive to be so productive
Mm-hmm.
that you're stressed the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to the point where you get all the money that you want, but you're stressed, you overfed yourself, you don't do exercise because you're working all the time, and then you will use all that money just to treat your illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a balance. The father of medicine, Hippocrates, said that health is the perfect balance between you and your environment.
I love it.
And that's,
I love it. Yeah.
so, and also it has to be that balance between being productive and enjoying life.
Absolutely.
So we did a review of all of the blue zones in the world. The blue zone is where the rate of people that live 100 or over is very high.
Mm-hmm.
In the world. There are about 8 zones like that. And we thought that it was a diet, really, when we started to do this research. But I found after, it took us about 3 years to understand why they live longer. And one of the major factors is that those people enjoy life.
Yep.
Most of my patients are Americans. And I just find them to be so driven. You don't enjoy life.
Right. No, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. And we live in a keeping up with the rat race society here.
Yeah. So those 3 things, exercise, 4 hours a week is not that much.
There's 168 hours in a week, right? And so if you don't have 4 for your health and fitness, then it's just an excuse. That's the reality.
Then eating food the way that God put it on this earth, reduce the amount of meat that you consume, and be happy.
Yep. No, I love it.
And you're going to live a long, healthy life.
I love it. Have you, it's funny you bring up the long, healthy life thing. Do you know of Daniel Kennedy? He did the Amazon Prime series where they went and studied all the blue zones. Are you familiar with that docuseries?
That's our thing. Daniel Kennedy is my nephew.
Okay. So
Daniel
connection.
Kennedy,
He was just on the show not long ago. Okay. Love it.
Yeah. So that's precisely what I was talking about.
Okay, perfect. So we're small world, right? But yeah, he was on the show not long ago talking about the blue zones and, talking about like those people have exercise built into their life. And like you mentioned earlier, the way that God intended it, right? In terms of food and that kind of thing. So I want to unpack that a little bit, because the reality is this, is like you said, those people enjoy life. They also have exercise built into their life. Daniel was talking about how they, I think it was like they hike like, I don't know, a mile and a half or 2 miles or something to go drop off, their grazing herds of sheep or whatever it is. Then they come back to the village, they hang out all day and do whatever they got to do, and then they go back and go get the wildlife and come back. There was never any focus on going and doing exercise. It's built into their day.
Okay.
Another thing that they do is they stay outside a lot. They get natural sunlight, the vitamin D. They're not stressed people. They socialize. They're very, they're not isolated by technology and social media and these kinds of things. So when you say be happy and enjoy life, with people like that who really don't know any different, right? They've never been given the opportunity to do, to have negative influences in their life. They don't have a immediate gratification phone or asking Alexa or Siri or something to get it done. They don't have fast food restaurants, right? So it's a stark contrast in what our lifestyle looks like. And so when we talk about that, you mentioned the stress of trying to keep up with the finances and doing all these things that, in a very developed country like ours does, right? So a lot of these, a lot of people in our country are hustling just to live in the day by day, right? Make it day by day. It's a couple examples. I saw this the snowstorm that we just had here in Texas, man. Like people were, people can't afford to not go without power for a few days. You got people looking for work because they're starving, because they're freezing and all these things. And so my question for you is, for somebody out there who just doesn't seem like they don't even know where to start to live a happier, more fulfilled life. They don't even know where to start to navigate the world of nutrition. What is your advice to kind of take a step back and maybe even reevaluate life and its priorities? Like, do you have any suggestions there that might help somebody kind of get that process started so that they might be able to live a happier life?
Yes, I think that within the environment that you have to live in America, and so there's no way that a large part of your audience is going to be able to walk for 2 hours
right
to get things done and come back. It's just not possible. That's why I mentioned at the beginning that it will take some discipline.
Sure.
But discipline brings a lot of gratification. And the other thing is to understand, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? I had a patient, young, a yuppie from New York, a lawyer, 37 or 38, and they sent him home to die because he was invaded with cancer. And so he decided to come to Mexico. And when I looked at his chart, the whole thing just looked very dire, because he had bone metastasis, liver metastasis, lung metastasis. And so I started to cheer him up, and I said, well, there's life, there's hope, and we're going to fight for you. And he said, "Oh, doctor, you don't need to cheer me up." Why? He said, "Because cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me." Wow, explain that to me. I told him, "Well, I was working 16, 18 hours a day. I had a wife that was about to leave me, 3 kids that I didn't know. And thanks to this cancer, now I sit back and I spend all the time that I can with my children. And every evening I hold hands with my wife and look at the sunset. Cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me." So the lesson from this is, you have to work, you have to be productive, but don't overdo it. Don't let life go by without enjoying the beautiful things, because hard days are going to be there always.
No matter what. Yeah.
Right. This is and I saw some people that were, their houses were from Texas yesterday on the news. Their houses were, flooded and iced. It was terrible. So we're all going to have days like that, but we need to sit back and enjoy life and appreciate the beauty of life. Because if you just spend it all in trying to get more money because your neighbor has a better car than you and you want a bigger house and all, many of those things are completely unnecessary.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%.
And the great things in life are free, you know.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. No, I love it.
your friends, your family,
Yep.
that is so much more important and more healthy, because when you are spiritually strong, you're going to be emotionally functional, right?
No
Your
doubt.
action to bad things are going to have are going to be emotions that are going to be productive for you. Whereas if you are spiritually weak, then your emotions are going to be dysfunctional. They're going to be worrying you more. So I know that it's easier said than done,
It
but
is.
most of
That's
us
why I wanted
need,
to ask you, though, man. And because the reality is we're all people. There is
yeah,
no magic answer. But I just wanted to
exactly,
get your take. You know.
yeah,
So let me ask you this. So, like that story you just told me or told us was is pretty powerful in a lot of different ways. The reality is that that guy realized that his life was passing him by, and he took the silver lining of having cancer to be able to actually have time with his family. Now, you know, it sounds like this guy, is he still living? Is he still alive?
he lived for about 6 years when he was
Wow.
given 2 or 3 months to live.
Okay.
And
So
so he
he,
was able, you know, the children were able to grow. He was able to set them up and enjoying life. He just enjoyed
yeah.
every day.
Well, and so the reason I asked that is it's like he, you know, he accepted that he was checking out, right? He there's no need to have that. Like you mentioned the emotions, right? When you're in touch spiritually, it's a lot easier. You know, your emotions are, you know, they're a lot easier to control, and really you don't have this anxiety of always what's next, what's next, what's next. And I've one thing that we teach inside of our private programs is a big component or a big component of what we teach is stress management. And some of those things are not just stress management strategies, but also personal development strategies. And I feel like, and you correct me if you feel I'm wrong, but I think that when personal development is a high priority in your life, you're looking to become a better person in all areas of life, not just financially, not just spiritually, not just physically, not just with your relationships, but you're always looking to improve. I feel like that alone can eliminate some of these issues that you're talking about with not being able to enjoy life, right? Like this guy was so dead set in his career, 16, 18 hours a day. That's not a life. You know as well as I do, that's not a life. Speaking from your own self, right? You're a physician. I know some physicians. I spent 6 years working in the ICU when I started my career, and I was doing post-op heart surgery recovery. And we had a couple of cardiologists and pulmonologists that would literally spend their entire life at the hospital, right? They get like 4 hours of sleep, maybe a couple hours with the family, and then it's back to the hospital. And so those kind of doctors, man, like they've dedicated their entire career in life to not having a life. So there's that type of person, but then there's the rest of the people out there who are just working themselves in the ground, trying to keep up with the Joneses, the next door neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you brought that up, because that story right there, whether it's cancer, whether it's obesity that's going to lead to chronic conditions eventually, I think the reality is people in general, but guys need to take a step back and reevaluate their life. Like you talked about the why. Why do you really want to do this, right? Why do you want to live a healthy life? And when you start going deep like that, you know, that becomes your driving motivator, your driving source of what you're going to be able to get up and fight every day, instead of just succumbing and being a victim of your circumstances. Would you agree
Yes.
with that?
Yes, and life goes by so fast. I mean, I remember when I was like you, 30-ish. Now I'm
Yeah, I
69.
love that you said that, because I'm actually 41, so I appreciate the
Wow,
compliment.
man, you look better than that. You
Thank
look
you.
better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have good genes.
So
My mom had really
it
good skin
just
as
it
well.
just goes so fast,
It
and
does.
then you look back. You know, I remember yesterday holding my children in my arms, and now I'm holding grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so life goes so fast, and for us to waste it in petty problems is not good. And one of the biggest problems of being in stress is that you destroy your immune system.
Yeah.
And so one of the major factors of people developing cancer is immune deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't eat right, if you don't sleep, if you don't enjoy life, Well, that is why the rate of cancer is so high. In America, 1 of every 2 people are going to develop cancer in their lifespan.
That's insane. It's insane. And you know, you went there with the statistics. So, because I'm going to tie this back in. I mean, obviously, your specialty is cancer, but we start talking about that kind of stuff, and you can bring in heart disease, diabetes, all these things. And the reality is everything that, you know, and everything that we teach inside of our program, obviously diet and exercise, we can pound those into the ground. And the reality is most people know the importance of those, right? They at least recognize that eating somewhat healthy and being active are crucial aspects of achieving optimal health. I think where a lot of people go wrong, especially what we're seeing inside of our community, is that most men especially do not prioritize sleep enough, and they do not prioritize stress management enough. And to your point, when your sleep is crap, you've got high levels of stress all the time, you're not active, you're eating like crap. Like, this is just a whole perfect storm of developing all kinds of issues. And so the fact that you said 1 of 2 people is going to develop cancer in their lifetime, like, that's a scary stat. And I think that the key factor here is awareness, man. Like, you got to make your health a priority. And some of the things that we're talking about, they're very easy to do, but they're also very easy not to do.
Correct. So there's no question that you have to sit down and inspire yourself to discipline yourself.
Right.
But again, you know, 4 hours a week is
not much.
That big of a sacrifice.
No.
In looking for healthy things to eat, it's also not that big of a sacrifice.
No. And there's a lot that, you know this, there's a lot you can do with nutrition that can make it taste really, really good without you having to feel like you're eating like a rabbit. I mean, that's the reality. Like, what we teach, you know, that's a question we get a lot for guys that come on to work with us in our team is like, am I going to have to eat chicken and broccoli all the time? Or am I going to have to, like, is this like some rigid meal plan? I'm like, the reality is that's not sustainable. And so why would I tell you to do something temporarily? It's kind of like the people who go out and follow keto just for weight loss. I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of this where someone will go out and follow like a fad diet like that. They'll drop 50, 60 pounds only to turn around and gain 70 to 80 back over the next year because it wasn't sustainable. And so what we teach is as sustainable as possible so that you can live life and have fun doing it. And I think that's where there's a big misconception over healthy eating, especially in our country, because crappy junk food is so easy to get, and it appeals to your taste buds because they put all that processed crap in there to keep you coming back. And so I think that there's a fine line there between, okay, it doesn't have to be rigid, it doesn't have to be boring, you don't have to feel like you're eating cardboard all the time, but you need to start incorporating more of these nutrient-dense foods in your life, not just for your energy levels, but for your long-term health and longevity as well. So I want to start to unpack a little bit on the cancer side of things, because I know that that's a big focal point of yours. So my first question to you, we talked about the story with the gentleman who was given months to live and then ended up living in an additional 6 years. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what else could have been done? And I believe, look, we are very big in our country, obviously westernized medicine. We're all about throwing Band-Aids on everything, right? Medication here for this, medication for that, medication for this. And so when I'm getting caught up in this as a registered nurse, my wife is a pharmacist. So this is what we've been taught our whole lives. I'm all about looking into alternative therapies. I firmly believe that there are other ways than the way that we do it that can be very, very successful. So when you talk about a story like that, obviously it piques my curiosity. So my question to you is there really hope, or what kind of hope is there for people that are facing a stage 4 cancer diagnosis when chemo has failed, chemo, radiation, and that kind of stuff has failed? What other things are there out there? And if you don't mind sharing a little bit of that with us, what kind of therapies and that kind of thing?
Yes, we have been very successful in treating patients that were deemed, dead.
With for lack of a better term, that's what it is, right? Yeah.
And they were sent home to die or to hospice because we look at cancer from a different point of view. I think that the reason for our success is that we philosophically treat cancer patients differently. And I think with your background, you're going to appreciate that. What do I mean philosophically? Well, the thrust of cancer therapy now is to destroy tumor mass.
Sure.
And you say, well, that's logical. I have a
Right.
tumor. I want it gone.
Right.
But the problem is that we use radiotherapy, chemotherapy, or surgery to get rid of it. And the least aggressive is surgery. Chemotherapy is devastating to us.
Yes.
So, so our philosophy is that we are going to strive for quality of life rather than tumor destruction.
Sure.
Because we can convert, not easily, but with many things that we do, cancer into a chronic ailment. So for your audience to understand this, if you are given the diagnosis of diabetes, you say, my God, no more sugar, right?
Sure.
But if you're given a diagnosis of cancer, you say, oh my God, I'd rather get my affairs in order, right? It's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Because in your mind, cancer is a death sentence,
Yes.
where diabetes is a drag.
Right.
And so if you were able to convert that into cancer, where you say, oh man, it's a drag, and I'm going to have to do some changes, but I can beat it, well, then everything changes. And we have been able to convert cancer into a chronic ailment by focusing on the metabolic impact of cancer rather than the genetic origin of cancer. Okay. So right now, cancer is being treated as a genetic disease, which it is.
Sure.
So most of the new therapies are targeted therapies, right? Targeted therapies are therapies that aim at a certain part of your DNA that is producing certain protein that is benefiting the tumor.
Sure.
And if you give that therapy targeted and that protein is not produced, well, the tumor is going to suffer. And I think that's all well. But a patient with breast cancer, for instance, well, mostly in your audience is men, so let's say colon cancer,
sure.
The average number of mutations is 180.
Wow.
Right? So in order for you to have a very effective cancer treatment for cancer of the colon, you have to have 180 targeted therapies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't exist.
No, that's
At
insane.
most, right now, we have 35 targeted therapies.
Okay.
And the cost of each therapy is about $10,000 a month.
Adds up quick. Getting sick is not cheap.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So the common denominating metabolic factors for all cancers are about 7 or 8. What do I mean by that? Well, whether it's cancer of the breast, cancer of the colon, cancer of the stomach, cancer of the pancreas, they all need a lot of sugar to survive. That's a metabolic common denominating factor, right? So if I change the diet of a patient and they don't eat sugar anymore, well, the tumor is going to suffer.
Okay.
All tumors, whether it's a sarcoma, whether it's cancer of the liver, it doesn't matter. All tumors work in a hypoxic environment. Tumors hate oxygen.
Okay.
And that's why they need so much sugar, because they're very inefficient in converting sugar into into energy. So if I'm able to oxygenate the tumor tissue, that tumor is going to suffer.
So you cut sugar and you add oxygen. I'm on board. All right.
And so ozone therapy has proven beyond any doubt to oxygenate tumor tissue, because you can put a mask with oxygen at a systemic level. That oxygen is not going to get to the tumor.
Okay.
So ozone is the only one. So ozone therapy is very effective. Cancer tissue, because it grows so fast and so unorganized, has builds up all the arteries and veins in a very convoluted way.
Okay.
So they cannot get rid of heat as well as the rest of your tissue, right? Our circulatory system works as our radiator.
Right.
So if you heat a patient to the point that normal tissue can withstand it, but cancer tissue cannot, you can kill a tumor. So
Wow.
hyperthermia is another big part of our therapy.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I love it. So it's like a three-pronged attack there. Yeah.
And another factor is that tumor tissues, because they lack oxygen, when they metabolize sugar without oxygen, their waste material, and you're an athlete, is lactic acid.
Okay.
Lactic acid is our enemy.
Right.
And because of that, the pH of the tumor tissue is acidic.
Okay.
So if you can deacidify the pH of the tumor tissue, you can hurt cancer.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't matter how much alkaline water you consume or alkaline food, the tumor tissue's pH is going to stay acidic.
Okay.
But there are elements that we can use, especially baking soda, which specifically will elevate the pH of tumor tissue. So with all of this and I can go on and on. And
no, I love it. I love it. This is fascinating stuff.
So we have all of those elements, and that help us maybe not kill the tissue with one of them, but when you add 6, 7, or 8 of these things,
sure,
and then you give a little bit of chemotherapy or very high dosages of vitamin C that can work like chemotherapy, you will destroy the tumor without damaging the patient.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And so sometimes we cannot cure the patient.
Sure.
But now we have elements to control tumor growth. And if you stabilize a tumor, a patient can live for 20 years.
Right.
The patient's not going to be cured, right? But, you know, after 2 or 3 years, the patients get the hang of it. Well, I have cancer, but I'm doing everything that I want to. I'm enjoying life. So who cares that I have cancer? And so that's the way that we treat and manage cancer. And we have been very successful. Our statistics are much better than any other institution that treats cancer in the world. Better than the Sloan Kettering, better than the MD Anderson, better than any in Europe, because we do those simple things.
I love it. I love it. So let me ask you this then: when you're comparing your stats to other systems out there, other healthcare systems, so are you? I know you're in Mexico, right? So in reality, is the United States? Are we utilizing any of those alternative therapies with any kind of consistency, to your knowledge?
The amazing thing is that all of the data that I'm giving to you, that why it works, it all comes from research done in America.
Okay. And we don't use it.
The Americans don't use it. And they don't use it because things have to be FDA approved. Mm-hmm. And you as a nurse, and especially your wife, will understand that. I mean, for things to get approved by the FDA, they take money.
Yeah.
Right now, the average for a big company or a company to get something approved is about $800 million.
It's insane. It's insane.
And so the companies have asked the government, well, what are you going to give me in return if you make me? Because all the money is spent not on fees, it's on research to prove that something is safe and effective. Effective is easy to prove, right? You have high sugar levels, I give it to you, but safety takes years of many clinical trials.
Yes.
And so the industry as the government, what are you going to give me in return? Well, I'm going to give you a patent for you to have a monopoly of this invention for you to make your money back. And I think that's fair. But if you say, I'm going to use vitamin C, you still have to prove that it's safe and effective. You still have to spend the $800 million, but then they can't give you a patent. Why? Because it's a natural thing. Mm-hmm.
So that same holds true with each of those treatment modalities that you mentioned.
Exactly. And that's why they're not using it, because you can't. Now, I remember I had a very heated discussion with an oncologist and said, how can you be using, he was really mad, how can you be using things that are not FDA approved?
Because I'm in Mexico.
I told them, you have the idea that FDA approved is good, FDA not approved is bad, right? He said, yes. I said, do you eat bananas? And the guy goes, what? Yes, I'm asking, do you eat bananas? He said, yes. Well, they're not FDA approved. You see, FDA approval is just a procedural thing,
Yes.
but it doesn't
I
mean
quite
it's
frankly
good
think
or
it's a joke,
bad.
to be honest with you. Yeah.
And so in Mexico, our government is a lot is more
More lenient.
lax in
Yeah.
allowing. Why? Because 51% of our population lives under the line of poverty.
Yeah.
And so we are taught many natural therapies, or, from our grandmothers,
Yeah.
on how to teach people and how to do it.
Well, it's a
Because they have
cost-saving
no
mechanism
money
that's
to
just
go to the
built into
doctor.
your economy.
Yeah, they have
I
no
love
money to
that.
go to the doctor, and then less to buy the medications, especially if they're $10,000 a month.
All right. No. So would you then venture to say that some of the FDA issues, right? And this is an opinion just solely based on your opinion, but like obviously, money makes the world go round, whether you like it or not. And when we go back to our prior conversation about thinking about, okay, well, like take a step back, and do you really want to work 18 hours a day to make money and keeping up with the Joneses? This kind of ties into that. But my question to you would be, if some of those FDA, like if those treatment modalities that you guys are utilizing are clearly working, and the stats show that, the science is there to back that data, do you feel like with introducing more of that kind of stuff, which is obviously significantly cheaper than medications, do you feel like that's also a big holdup, saying, okay, wait a minute, like we're going to introduce this natural stuff, which is pretty cheap to do, or we can keep these people paying $10,000 a month for these expensive chemos and make our money, but also help the patient get healthy too?
Yes, well, I don't think there's a conspiracy, correct, against this. It's just the fact that you have to,
It is
for
what it
the
is.
FDA to approve it, you have to spend that money. So what has to change is the way things are regulated,
Mm-hmm.
and allow the industry to go for natural things and be able to make money on natural things. They are going to be much cheaper. Everybody's going to benefit. But I don't know, the politician that would make that happen.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I think that you saw, right, with a vaccine, how
Yeah, it's
big
ridiculous.
industry can manipulate politicians
Yeah.
very easily. And so it's like a catch-22, and I don't have the solution for that. I'm
I
happy
understand. Yeah, I get it. We're on
I'm
the
happy
same
to have
page here,
places
man.
where I can do it.
Yeah.
But I feel sorry for my colleagues in America, which are just hand-tight.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. The best schools of medicine in the world are in the U.S. And so you study for 12 years, and you know this
Yep.
because and then you go and practice, and you have to do cookbook medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get off of the script. Why did you study so much if you're going to follow like a recipe?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You can't make your own informed decisions. Right?
I'm really, I have friends that are so frustrated.
Yeah, I would imagine, man. I would imagine. Well, look, this was great. I loved this conversation. I'll ask you one more thing here, and you kind of already alluded to this a little bit, but obviously with some of these other therapies, is there anything else that you feel like separates what you do from other oncologists out there? Maybe not. We can expand beyond the treatment modalities, because obviously what you can do there and what we can do here is quite different. So are there any other aspects of your approach to oncology that separates you and your operation from other oncologists out there?
Big time. We understand that a cancer patient, especially a cancer patient, not only has physical needs, but a cancer patient has emotional and spiritual needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For them, it's life or death. The whole thing is that, whether you're going to exist or not.
Right.
And so a big part of our program is providing our patients emotional and spiritual resources. And so we have a psychologist full-time and a pastor full-time. and we spend a lot of time with our patients. Laughter therapy is another big thing.
I love it. Laughter is the best medicine, right?
Definitely.
It's
I mean,
easy to laugh about that, no pun intended, but it's the reality, you know?
the,
Like, I
you
find
know,
myself in a really good mood if me and my son have like a laughing fit for 30 seconds, right? It's like, wait a minute, I
exactly.
feel good, you know? So
Exactly.
I love it.
You know, the most effective immune stimulating elements are completely free. Meditation, prayer, music, laughter.
Love it.
They don't
Best
cost
things in
a
life
bit.
are free, and you really just, there you took it another layer lower. I love it.
And so we spend a lot of times with our patient. We have been criticized and bombarded for many years for selling false hope. And you know, the question is, well, what is true hope? You have cancer with metastasis and you're going to die in 6 months. What? There is no true or false hope. There is hope or no hope.
Yep, I can't agree with you more.
And giving hope to a patient, I think, is paramount. It's so important. And so,
You and I'm sorry to cut you off here, but the reality is this, and you can literally summarize it with this one statement, right? You, by giving them hope, you are literally installing fight into that person. You take
exactly.
away hope, you've eliminated fight, and they might as well just give up now, right?
Yeah.
And so false hope, or like if and here's my question, or the hypothesis, right? So like if it's false hope, you say you give this person hope, you're like, look, we're gonna make you laugh, we're gonna get fulfill your spiritual side, we're gonna fulfill your emotional side, we're gonna do all these things, and if you truly are instilling false hope in this person because of all those things you did, ends up living an extra 2 months or an extra 2 years, the reality is they still made it longer than they were going to make without those
Exactly.
things. So there's no such thing as false hope.
Agreed. Totally agreed. And so we work a lot on that. And you know, it's amazing that doctors would say that when hope is in it's a big problem for us. Why do we do double-blind studies? Because your mind influences the results,
Mm-hmm.
whether you know if you're taking the drug or not. Well, that's
Yeah,
hope.
that's hope.
Why don't we exploit, in the good sense of the world,
Yes,
the power of our minds in the treatment of disease? It's
yes,
crazy that we don't.
yes.
And so we do. We brainwash our patients that they can live.
I love that. Look, I love the approach, and again, I think it's you're either giving them fight or you're taking it away.
Yeah.
And so, false hope in a situation like that, like, look, the reality is if you're dying, you're dying.
Yeah.
And if I can give you something to have at least some ounce of being able to get up and looking forward to the next day a little bit, it's better than you were yesterday. So
Yeah.
look, man, I think it's ridiculous to say that there's false hope in this situation. Like it's a
Correct.
life or death situation. This person has one life to live, and theirs is already kind of they're 1 foot out the door. And if you can come in and like you did with the guy, right? Like the story you brought up with the guy who said cancer was the best thing that ever happened to him. He got 6 more years, right? Or
Yeah.
we'll call it 5 years and 8 months or whatever that was supposed
Yeah.
to be. So false hope is a false statement in my opinion.
You're
So,
right. You're right.
well, I love it. I love it, man. You added a lot of value to the episode today. I'm excited for our community to get their ears onto this. But is there anything else you'd like to add? Well, first of all, where can we find you, right? So any social media, any websites, anything like that, if people want to get in contact with you or find out a little bit more about what Dr. Contreras is up to these days. But then also any last little bit of advice for anybody out there listening who either has a cancer diagnosis and needs hope, or maybe they're trying to avoid that part of their life. We already touched on that, but anything any final words you want to add after, you kind of let us know where we can find you.
Our website is oasisofhope.com.
Okay.
And our number is 888-500-HOPE.
Oh, I love it. All right. We'll get that all on the show notes as well. So that'll be listed.
And I just want to let everybody know that cancer does not have to be a death sentence. That you can beat cancer, you can fight cancer, you can live with cancer for many years. And I love the quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who said, "Yesterday is gone, tomorrow is a mystery. today is a gift. That's
I
why it's
love
called
that too.
the present.
Yeah, I love it too.
And so enjoying life, you have to live as if this was your last day.
That's
Enjoy.
another one of those things. It's easier said than done. And I'll just tell you in my own personal experience. And you mentioned, you said I look 30, I'm 41. I'll tell you, the older that I get, what you just said is something that I am trying to be extremely diligent and intentional about in my own life. Is I think there's also a saying out there, and I get it, like there's exceptions to every rule, right? When you start talking about clinical depression, clinical anxiety, those kind of take that out of the loop. But I'm talking in the general population. There's a saying that's something around the lines of, depression is you spending way too much time thinking about the past, things you can't change. Anxiety is spending way too much thinking about the future, about things that you can't change. And so living for the moment and realizing that nobody is promised tomorrow, but doing everything in your power to live the healthiest life possible so that if you do get another day, you're going to be able to live and perform your best on a day-to-day basis and truly be able to love and live life. And so I think this was a great interview, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you so much. And we'll have to do it again in the future, man. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Same to you.
Thank you.